It was the year 2020. God, I'm not looking forward to talking about this one, but we're going to talk about it because I've been pushing it away for 4 years. So at the date of this recording, it is 2024. 4 years have transpired since the COVID-19 pandemic shut down basically the entire world. And for those of you out there who enjoyed this time, for those of you who were happily taking a little bit of a break, because you probably never have before, taking a little bit of a break, collecting some money from the government, and baking banana bread and watching silly things on TikTok and getting into Tiger King, and you're just loving it, loving that family time. I applaud you. I applaud you. When people tell me that they loved the pandemic time, I'm like, wow, I am jealous. I did not love it. I have not loved it since it happened. I still don't love it. I don't love that we're talking about it right now because I would rather do anything, to be perfectly honest. So, owning a business. So my salon was open for 2 years before we were mandated to be closed for the pandemic. And we were closed collectively for about 10 weeks where I live. And, compared to all of the world, the time that we were closed was, a small blip, right? There's other places like California and parts of Canada that were closed for a very, 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 very long time. So I want to just be mindful and conscious that everyone has had a very different experience about the pandemic. I think that being a hairdresser has brought up a lot of different things, especially in going back to work. So we were very, very conscious, very mindful of keeping people safe, being very clean, protecting people as much as possible. If everything was real or true or what, like, we just took it seriously. We're like, what's the big deal of like trying to do the right thing, which is keeping some distance, wearing some masks, cleaning extra, which, if you're doing all your state board safety and sanitation measures, was not that much more above and beyond. So, the interesting part that I found when we reopened and my team started taking clients again was a lot of the people coming in for their hair services um, did not have a lot of human contact in that time, right? Maybe their family that they live with, but maybe they were, living alone, or maybe weird things happened, or like obviously there was loss of life. So like it was a really grief-stricken time for literally everyone. And so when we went back to work physically in person, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this as well, is our team and our hairdressers were hearing these stories all day long, right? So my team was getting burnt out. And yes, there were moments of like joy and fun and laughter and, some people choosing to hug one another, but the physical touch, I think, of, a hand on your shoulder and getting a shampoo and being able to like be in the company of another person is a really incredibly valuable thing. And so we recognized that was and we recognized that it wasn't necessary, like we weren't important to the survival of the world. But to the emotional well-being of people, the human to human connection is really important, right? We're community seeking people. So in this time, what we found was that people were seeking that community, but what they really needed to do was verbalize and talk about how hard and challenging their time was and to tell their own pandemic story. Like, where were you? What happened? Could you work from home? Like, what happened with your family? And I saw my team getting burnt out, and I think it was a really important time for me to really acknowledge some of the freedoms that we offer in my salon, to be like, listen, if you need a day off, please block one and please take one. Like, you know what you need. You know, if you're feeling not well, right? Like, go get tested, go get checked. Like, we were very on top of like trying to keep ourselves and everyone else around us really safe, but also mentally taking some time to say, okay, I need a day and I need to go do something fun, or, I can't do anything fun, but I do need to recharge, or I need to talk with you, my boss, and say, this is a lot. This is a lot to take on. And it is, and it was. And I feel really proud of being able to have these freedoms implemented for the team prior to the pandemic, because I think if we had just started doing that when we came back, I think that a lot of them maybe wouldn't take it, right? They might not trust it. They might not see that's real. They'd be like, but I'm scheduled. I need to work, even though like I'm mentally exhausted from hearing other people's really challenging stories. So this kind of, what's the term? Compassion fatigue. I think we all experienced that. And it became, I think, very normal for us in the salon to kind of have like take these things on that I don't know where I was going with that sentence. That's okay. It was important because where am I going? Where I'm going? Here's where I'm going. Here's where I'm going. The other thing that I found that was really cool about being able to go back to work so soon and be among people is all of us as hairdressers did not feel that sense of deep, long term loneliness that a lot of individuals and clients and other people felt. We were not isolated to be working from home. We were like thrown back into working with people. And it was actually really good. Like I think I had a client maybe a year and a half into the pandemic time. So like maybe in 2021 when we were finally getting vaccines or like being able to like remove masks partially or like whatever it was. And they were like, I haven't really left my house yet. Like, this is one of my first outings. And they felt even a little bit nervous about it. They're like, this is the first thing that I'm doing, and I'm really looking forward to it. But also, I'm nervous because I've been isolated for this long. And so, what I found and saw is that we were like, didn't have that kind of like loss of community because we saw each other at work. We saw clients who we were familiar with, and we were able to like get back into seeing one another, talking to people, laughing as we could, and kind of like making light of really challenging things. So that's like one of the cool parts of I don't know that we were forced to go back to work, but we were allowed. Maybe it wasn't the right time. I don't know. It was all weird. I would just say, as a business owner, going through the pandemic and navigating that, I would not wish that on anyone. I hated every moment of it. And the time that people, again, were like baking bread and, I don't even remember what everybody was doing because I wasn't doing any of that. I was like on the internet, researching things, like looking at the mandates, looking at the all of the stuff, like researching, like looking into unemployment, like what can we do? What about this PPP loan? Like, do we qualify and how's it going to work? And so I was very obsessed day to day of staying up to date on like what's the new development, how does this affect my team, how does this affect my business, what are we going to do, what's the plan. So trying to stay 2 steps ahead and to stay aware of all of the information when the information is changing every day. So I would say that I probably first started feeling mostly back to normal as a human being like last year, 2023. Because the after effects, as you as listeners maybe have experienced, the after effects of that whole time, um, like it wasn't just done. Like it wasn't done when we went back to work. It wasn't done when we had vaccines. It wasn't done when we wore masks. It continued, and it continues to continue, right? As things ebb and flow and what have you. So, a lot of people have really put it out of their mind, like that never happened. And what I have learned from some therapy and research and things because of like my own like traumatic events in like an alcoholic marriage is that there's a part of our brain that just casually and strategically forgets. So when we think about like, oh my God, like it's been 4 years, like that's crazy. Like it feels like yesterday, or it feels like it's been 10 years. Like there's a safety mechanism in our brain that's like, yeah, you have no concept of time because this is a protective mechanism. And when everything feels like a blur, you're like, I don't even know anymore. Like pause and say, do I not remember it because I don't want to? Do I not remember it because there were lots of other crazy things happening? Do I not remember it or do I actually remember it just fine, right? But the time whoosh has affected all of us because it was a collectively traumatic experience. Like we all went through that. So like all of us on the worldwide level went through a very crazy time, a very impactful traumatic event for the whole world. Again, the trauma varies from person to person, from place to place. So I'm not dismissing that. So talking about it in a constructive way, like at the time, none of us wanted to talk about it anymore. We were like, we're over it. And now I think talking about it again to reflect and say, these parts were interesting, these parts were painful, these parts were kind of necessary to be able to change things or continue forward with things. So, what a time. What a time to be alive. And I did watch Tiger King twice. I can't tell you why we watched it twice. Probably because it was unbelievable. So yeah, that's the pen